it is something very important to all of us, because for a marketing team, the most important thing is the pitch, right? One of the most important things is the pitch. So this session is all about pitching for the stars. How to create an impactful agency pitch deck to land your dream clients. Our speakers are here to unlock the secrets of crafting stellar agency pitch decks that dazzle and win over dream clients. With expert strategies from them to elevate your pitch and shoot for the stars. Please welcome our speakers. First and foremost, we have Kajol Peda, the founder of Scribbled Social. Put your hands together in a massive round of applause, everybody. And then we have Pallavi Tinkar, the Vice President of Concept PR. Put your hands together in a massive round of applause.
Hello everyone. So Pallavi, do you want to first start by introducing yourself?
Yeah. All right. I hope everybody's alive and kicking after that great lunch. All right. So folks, I'm Pallavi. I'm from Mumbai. I work with an agency called Concept Communications. I take care a lot of technology mandates. I'm not a by chance PR person. I dived straight into this world of PR and communications. Also, 2 decades of very, very specific enterprise communications in tech, which means that right from the earlier days of servers, cloud, etc., to now anything under the sun for tech. That's me. And there's Kajol.
Hello. So I don't have as much experience does. My agency, my digital marketing agency, my creative agency is about 4 years old only. We started in mid-pandemic, so we started in 2020 when we definitely saw a gap in the market, and especially for healthcare. We started with healthcare marketing, now again the sun when it comes to marketing. But yeah, it's been a fun 4 years. I was in marketing before that, not particularly with an agency background, but I did, however, I was on the brand side of it, and I definitely knew I wanted to be on the agency side of it, so here I am. So yeah, I think we've got some fun questions to answer today, which we'll take, I think, one after the other, and we're saving the questions till the end. Brilliant, okay. So Pallavi, can I ask you the first one? Sure. How do you differentiate a good pitch from
a good pitch from a great one? All right. So a lot of times, a lot of my colleagues and my industry folks, they want to know, what do we do better than others? And I take solace in a few things that I generally do, and they can be brass tacks in terms of what you will do, right from understanding soft skills, understanding the client, looking into their eyes, and actually, a firm handshake. It starts from there. But when it comes to the real, content, etc., a real thing is, and I think a lot of my, folks here in the session have previously also discussed, research goes a long way. And as they say, preparation is the key, and that's not, something which is cliche. It goes. If you do that like every day, 24 hours, that's still not enough. So preparation is something that needs to be done. Even if you're bored, tired, it doesn't matter, you continue to do that. When, one day an author was actually getting awarded about something, and his friend actually said that, you know what, boss, you got an award that's an overnight success. I'm sure you know this story. Someone said, oh yeah, this overnight success actually lasted 12 years, right? So preparation is something that you will come with, and that's ingrained in all of us, because we are the king makers. We want to make kings of our clients, our customers, our spokespeople, and that is something that you cannot undermine.
No, I agree. I completely agree. It's all about also understanding what your client wants out of you, what your potential client wants out of you. Like, they definitely want to save on time. They want to save on costs. They want to stay ahead of trends. They want you to preempt opportunity for them. And it's all about how you do that smartly. And there are obviously hacks. Like, something we do is we work with insights. So if we're creating a pitch for any client, let's say in education, we will first talk about an important insight in the last 5 years in the education sector. We'll tell them, let's say, dash out of dash people use edtech in India, just as an example. Again, this is very vague, but we try picking up on those insights. So then from there we can give them information or solutions or our execution point, so they understand that better. Apart from this, we also give them competitor analysis markers, or we call them comp analysis markers, which is you can't only do your competitor analysis when you're pitching to your client.
Right.
It has to be month on from there. It has to go with like the reports per month, for example. And I think the last and the least is, and this is something extremely simple that a lot of people miss out on, and this is, I think, the last thing that you need to do a great pitch, is describe a day in their audience's life. If you have 5 TGs, do it for all 5 of them. Dive into psychographics, right? Dive into what happens when they wake up. What phone are they shutting their alarm on? Are they using their alarm app? Are they using another app? And what app do they open first? What coffee do they drink in the morning? Which brand do they use? From that, to like, what happens till they sleep? When they sleep, are they using a particular type of pillow? Are they, do they have one of those apps that hears what you say when you're sleeping, or like, marks how many hours you've slept? So I think it's very important to at least dive into these points.
Sure. So at the cost of not sounding psycho, towards the end, but always have a reflection of, maybe put yourself in their shoes, see what goes best with them, for their business. There are greater things to be done. You may not achieve it in a day, or not on one slide, but please be patient while you get to that role, because patience is often undermined. We want to get to the bottom of everything within, just because we had tools, right, to our access. We want to get to there faster than we even imagined, but I think patience is something that will come absolutely very, very helpful. And while we will give you some hard data in terms of how it works, I want to definitely make sure that you really keep the soft skills to your credit. We always undermine the effect of them, but that is something that comes to our rescue each and every time. So,
what do you think are the key elements that every pitch should?
A couple of things actually. So one is when there's a client or a customer who's trying to tell you their problem, right? Understanding their problem is going to be key to this whole thing. And the problem could be anything, right? They could come to you in several different paragraphs, but it is for you to understand what their key statement could be. And that is something that will, come from on the top of, what storytelling they did to help you understand their problem. The other thing, we very well straight away jump into the strategy. But for strategy, again, as I said, there's a lot of prep that needs to be done. There's, a lot of questions that need to be asked. Was your client, clear enough in their brief? Were they able to themselves, get to the bottom of their own problem? Or were they just skimming on the top and then asking you to understand what their problem was? It happens to us a lot of times, right? So you may be required to define their problem because they probably did not understand what their problem was. So that's one. You'll have to be very clear on that. And because there is a problem statement, of course there will be a strategy. The strategy is done to that. The current situation is where people want to know what's the outcome. Because that is straight away linked to the question, the problem statement. So, in what PR used to be earlier, and even, the kind of transition that we've seen, we used to, especially in India, we've seen, I want 2 kgs of coverage. Not kidding. So there used to be, end of month dossiers where we used to, take each clip and, measure the square centimeters and the ad coverage, etc., and count them and then say, oh, because you paid me 100 rupees, I'm giving you 6,000 worth of coverage. Right? Simple scenario. And that has now kind of, come to a point where we are now actually calculating impact as a different kind of measurement. So do not forget what outcome you will define at the end of it, because the real question, 30 minutes after and into the pitch, what is in it for me? You don't want to ask, or you don't want to face that question, because that happens a lot of times. It's not just money, you're going to charge me 2 lakh rupees. No. What am I going to get out of this 2 lakh retainer? Right? So 3 things.
I also think it's very important, and that's obviously step 1. But step 2 is you need to know the brand's vision or the founder's vision. What are they looking at? And this is something that I used to teach, in fact, for a very long time, which is how do you define your vision? Depends on the industry you're in. If I'm in marketing today, it's an ever-changing industry and an ever-evolving industry. So if I need to think of my vision, it's probably only going to be 2 years from now. When you're in automobiles, it's probably going to be 10 years. If you're in, again, I can't think of industries, med tech, it's going to be a year. Because there's so many new things coming up constantly. So you need to make sure that you at least have a vision and a very, very strong vision for that period of time. Obviously, having said that, that's something you need to jot down there, because everything that you do is going to be working towards that. Number 2 is you find out whether they have one mission or multiple. Then you figure out what all strategies they've already used to kind of get there. If they're a startup, again, that's redundant, and you're probably the first agency that they're going ahead with. But it's so important to audit all of their channels before you begin. Audit all of their strategies, so they also understand where you're coming from. It's very important for the client to understand what you think is right, wrong, what you think is white, black, and green.
Agreed.
So I think all of that also needs to be put into the pitch. Obviously not as directly as I'm saying it should, but it should definitely come up in conversation during the pitch. So that I think is really important. And that actually brings us to our next point, which is what we were talking about. Storytelling is really important, right? When you're giving a pitch. And I have now come to realize after all of the pitches that I've given, is that you need to build a narrative when you're speaking to a client. And again, how you do that is, number 1, you start with insights. You go insight, conclusion. How you start with insights also is you start with a very generic one and then dive into deeper insights. Because all of us today like to consume short form content as opposed to long form. People today read in shorts more than they read any other long articles, and that's also because that's mainly because you get a summary of the article that you're going to read before you actually dive into it or invest your time into it. So what's really important is you always show them a glimpse of what they're about to see and then dive into the real thing. You will also automatically be able to see if the client is interested in what you're saying or in the insight that you're giving. And that helps you with how much time you need to spend on it.
So actually gets me to another thought. In your line of business, Kajol, how do you reach insights to actually develop maybe a strat or a plan?
So number 1, we have people on the team. We have researchers on the team that are very, very aware of the industries that we're already working with.
Sure.
So that helps. But apart from that, the research bit, if it's something, and I think I was going to bring this up a little bit later in the conversation, but what really helps us is we have primary and secondary insights. We very recently gave a pitch to, I wouldn't like to disclose who, but a Greek brand. And we held a focus group for them before we actually pitched to them. And this focus group helped us with all of the insights that we needed, because they had, and we've done this a couple of times in the past, but the recent one that we did was the most effective. Because we had a small focus group, we asked them definitive questions, we took that to the clients, and they instantly knew what the audience, what their ideal audience thought of them. We've done this online as well, but obviously offline is a lot more effective. And yeah, I think that's a very, very smart place to start. Apart from that, there are so many marketing consultancies that will help you with, just research. You can always outsource to them.
Sure, this actually reminds me of a time when we were actually looking to pitch to Microsoft in India, and data privacy, early 2011, 2012, very hot topic. And if you are aware of this place in Delhi called Nehru Place, a lot of that time used to be, a place to sell software which was unacceptable. People would use duplicate, software platforms, this and that. So, how do you actually inculcate something like a data privacy to the minds of a regular consumer? Right? Nehru Place is a place where people would frequent, buying CDs, music, movies, etc. And you will collect all of those resellers, ask them, actually educate them, run a campaign to, tell them the perils of data privacy, collect all their CDs, DVDs, etc., and actually ask them to break it in front of them. We've done that, right? So while data privacy may not be a very, if I may use the word succulent for the media at the time, because even they are kind of, struggling to understand what this concept would be, there's a tactic that we used, right? And that had actually gone in the pitch as well. So when you are looking to address a problem statement, think of even those ideas which may sound very small at the time, but they can actually generate, huge eyeball, get you, great amount of, coverage. And at the time there was not so much social media usage, but the generation was, amazing. So thank you for that point. That actually helped me
I take
get an
offense to
idea.
the generation was amazing.
Generation of
Oh,
thought.
thank God. I thought you meant the generation that was dealing with that. My bad. Okay. How did you deal with the digital transformation of PR? Because you've been doing this for a very long time. How did you deal with PR going digital instantly overnight? Because again, I'm telling you, we don't particularly deal with PR, but it's so interesting to see our clients that they assume that one offline article is maybe equivalent to 2 or 3 online articles published points. So how has that switched? And has it impacted your relationships with people in the field, with published houses, magazines, newspapers?
So, actually, intriguing question. We did not see that as digital transformation within the industry, especially when we were dealing with sending people with hard copies of press releases to the media publication houses, right? I mean, we would send them as emails, we would fax them, etc. Those were the times. But right now, the whole point is especially during the post-pandemic period, where a lot of publications and media houses are dependent so much on marketing monies, you're not able to organically get that kind of space in the publications you would want, right? So that is when you would look at other forms of digital rather than just transforming yourself. There's also the use of AI tools. We've spoken a lot about these in our previous conversations. So anything that makes a conversation interesting, so that could probably fall into that category, but not so much. We can use different formats, etc., to make a pitch, right? And we sometimes also have experimented with different form factors because it kind of takes away from the boredom of showing slides.
Yeah, that makes sense. Once a pitch is out, or while you're giving a pitch, how do you measure its success?
Okay. So, generally, as part of the process, we determine right from step 1 to step 100, there's a phase-wise approach to the entire plan. Now, if you are able to stick to the plan, if the client has signed you, right, you are going to do quarter reviews or monthly reviews or, a few assessments on your way. And I think that's your easiest way to get to your assessments in place. But if not, if, for example, there were other things that got in the way, your plans did not get materialized, there are several other ways to get things done. And then you will look at other channels such as social or non-social media to achieve those numbers. But that is a conversation that will have to happen on the ground.
So for me, to be honest, it's defined while I'm giving the pitch, because it depends on what kind of questions come to me, how quickly they ask for a proposal, how many questions, let's say, their team as a whole has to ask us, not only the person that we're pitching to or the group that we're pitching to. I love when they actually take the pitch back to their team and they come back with a lot more insights, when they come back with a lot more questions, when they're all curious about how we're going to function. That to me is what defines whether it's going to be successful or not. And obviously there may be a few more pointers where I may be missing out on. But yeah, during a pitch is when I feel like you'll be able to tell whether this client or how long your working relationship with the client is going to be.
I agree. And in fact, if you are able to see, the dance of the eyebrows, as I call it, during your conversation, and I see a lot of eyebrows moving in this room as well, that just keeps me also, focused on my talk to say that yes, people are listening. So that engagement, that non-vocal, non-verbal part of engagement also helps me understand that yes, this is going the right way. Otherwise, I'll have to also take my seat and go back to where I came from.
Alright, so what advice would you give to small businesses or startups that are looking to make a big impact with limited resources?
Good one. So there's one side of me which does PR and helps tech startups, build their image. There's also another part of me who works to, build funds or raise funds for startups. So one is the input and the other one is output, and we constantly have a struggle, in between. But if you actually understand the psyche of startups, they want to get done a lot more in minimum resources, as you said, right? A lot of the times when the questions are presented to them, either they are not sure what they want, or they are too sure of what they want, right? And in that, there's a lot of impatience. So all the time, my advice to a lot of startup founders is to have more than patience required to what they probably would look at building their startup, and also while building their own image and the startup's image in the media. Because without that, neither the business nor the image is going to achieve what they came out for. So, as Rome was not built in a day, as I said, your problem was not going to get solved in a day, right? So you're building a startup to resolve a problem, right? Similarly, to get famous, that fame doesn't come overnight. Patience is something that needs to be ingrained again.
Agreed, I genuinely couldn't agree more. It's very important to identify whether the startup that you're going to work with has an over-involved founder or CEO.
Absolutely.
Because that to me is a very big red flag.
Absolutely, and we've done a lot of media trainings or generally assessment trainings to get to the bottom of this whole need to either become famous. It's sometimes people are very aware that they need to be famous, only then can the product be famous, or it is the other way around, that if the product or that company got famous, they would ride on that success. So it's either ways.
I agree. Do you have any memorable pitches that you've delivered? How they go?
Sure. So one time, and this is again, I'm going back to a very, very tech enterprise kind of a pitch. One of the #1 cloud service providers, and the pitch was actually memorable because at the end of it, they sat down to ask how much tech prowess did the presenter have. Now, if a person like me who has a journalism background or a communications background would not understand a lot of technology, I'm doing PR for technology. I would not be talking tech or codes, right? But the marketing and the comms team were actually assessing how many people at the table who are presenting that pitch understood the tech that the company was involved in. And because of the understanding of that technology, did we win the pitch? So that is another angle that is, beyond even understanding the client's brief. Sometimes I think you just need to know the client's business, you need to know what their product is. Sometimes you just get to, deep diving into a situation and answering questions yourself, that if you owned that company or that product, what would you do for yourself?
I agree. Yeah, in fact, this was I think into year one, we had a very, very interesting pitch that we gave. And we were also invested because all of us personally really believed in the brand. Usually there's maybe one or two people that really resonate with what the client is selling, but at this point it was everyone, because it was an interior design brand. And the pitch that we gave, and not because it was that long, but the meeting lasted about like 4.5 hours. It was an online meeting scheduled for 30 minutes when the client felt like, oh, I have a hard stop at 2:30. And that meeting went on for about 4.5 hours, because he was like, I can't stop listening to what you guys have planned for us. Tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. And again, going back to this, and I feel like this recall is so important. It happened because we work with insights. We actually brought our research team into the meeting, and we asked them to start working with us from that very moment on further insights, on, let's say, okay, we've got a 6-month plan charted out. What do we do next? And that worked miraculously for us. That's honestly been great. We did the same with a diagnostics brand, and we've been with them for almost 4 years now. Lovely. So we've literally seen their growth from, they've already, I would say, at like 1,000 to like 20,000. So it's been great.
This is, I think, the way we've evolved in terms of communications, one as an industry and then as individuals, and then to even train, teach, help, our fellow colleagues to, think a little differently and, achieve the stars. I think that's incredible. And to that, I actually also wanted to understand one thing from you, Kajal, because that's a lot of digital and social, work that you do. How do you actually, measure success in your end? Because I know how PR functions and the outcome that you can measure, but a lot of times I kind of want to understand how would you measure your success.
There are so many KPIs, I wouldn't know where to begin. But it depends on what service you're providing. There are some clients that you want it all, and we can manage giving them, let's say all of the services, but there are some that only come to us to spread pure awareness. There are some that come to us saying we want our brand known in either, let's say, these 5 pin codes, or these 5 cities, or these 5 countries, and we want everyone between the age of 21 and 26 to know who we are. And we give them an advertising budget to do the same, and we tell them how we're going to achieve that, both organically and inorganically. There are clients that come to us to build communities. We very recently spoke to a client who said, I'm not interested in sales. Those will follow. I am interested in building a community. Very interesting, this client is actually building a skincare brand built on self-confidence. She is currently in the process of building this brand. It's probably going to take 8 months. But she said, I can't wait 8 months to launch my product and then launch my socials and then, get started. She said, I want to start now. I want to start talking about what matters to my audience now. I want to start helping them now. I want them to be my army starting now. And the more I feel like the more I see brands adapt this, this thought process, I feel like it's obviously number one, better for them, and number two, it makes it easier for us because it's not instant. You're not, starting today and expecting results Monday. But yeah, that's maybe one more thing. With performance marketing, it's easy. It's just ROAS. You check your return on ad spend. As long as it's above a 4, you're good. And that's also, again, that comes with, a lot of study of psychographics. But it's what goes behind these metrics is what's actually a little more interesting. Because to be honest, if I could be in any division within my team, it'd be BD, it'd be business development. I love it. I think that's what I spend most time on as well. Um, that's what I spend most time with my team on. It's it's transformative because when you go in there, you understand, you learn so much about your client, you learn so much about their likes and dislikes, you learn about what their purpose is, why they've started, said brand. It's There's some motivation that you get, like how you feel secondhand embarrassment. I call it secondhand motivation, because for those few hours, I'm so motivated to just help them in every way possible, and I just want to, and not for those few hours. That obviously continues the longer we work with them. But I think that's extremely interesting.
That's great. I was also looking at the kind of plan or the ideas that would flow into your pitch presentation that actually impresses a client, because we generally have a template to follow. We'll do a research, or we'll get to insights, or whatever else. Is there something which is different that our folks can learn that probably helps to get to like, for example, the client said 1 hour, and then they suddenly gave you only 30 minutes. What would you choose to present?
I would, that's a good one. I would definitely focus on my direct and indirect competitors and give them a research give them a research report. Because again, and this is something I keep trying to explain to everyone, is that you obviously have direct competitors. For me, a direct competitor would be a digital marketing agency, and indirect competitor would be a PR agency. Even I don't provide the same services, but we do have similar audiences. So it's very important for me to not only target other digital marketing agencies, but it's very important for me to target production houses, PR companies, so many communication agencies. There are so many people, and I feel like this is so important. So if you're on the brand side of it, demand it, and if you're on the agency side of it, do not send a pitch out without having a clear bifurcation of it, direct and indirect competitors. Obviously with pointers, with markers, but it's very important to keep a track of both direct and indirect always. How would you tackle this?
So especially with that scenario, if you just had 15 minutes, you of course land an elevator pitch, but this is not an elevator pitch. I would pick apart from the competitors like you mentioned. I typically also do a messaging house for my potential customers. That means that if I have understood their business and the brief correctly, I'm going to address what they will speak in the media for the next 12 months, which means I'm actually offering what I would do after signing the contract beforehand. What impresses them at the time is that now she knows what is coming to them at the time of signing and the next 2 quarters, right? So they are actually, but we are at, a place where we will feel that what if they run away, but that doesn't happen so often. They put that faith because then they trust you. They trust you, they will stay with you, and they will see that you have kind of, put yourself out there, given them already a plan to execute, and then that kind of, is like one more strike to, land at.
I'll ask you one simple thing. How do you get good at pitching?
Fireside preparation, and that's everything. I think aside of this fireside chat, which I may not be prepared for, I prepare for everything. Because, if I had a pitch on a particular time, at a particular day, you'd probably find me, talking to myself, practicing, rehearsing, and actually handling objections that you think potentially will come to you at the time of the pitch.
Understandable.
Very simple.
I think I would maybe pick a different route, or again, I think overall we may believe in the same thing, but I think you only get good at pitching when you give a lot of pitches.
Sure.
The self-reflection goes a long way. So for me, I feel like the first pitch I ever gave to now, I don't always need to see, what my team has prepared. I usually go into the pitch obviously studying the brand. That's very important. But I know exactly, we have a framework that we work on. We I know exactly what strategies we have, like, let's say, a bucket full of strategies that we use. So they're going to definitely use one of those, they're going to pick one of those, and now at this point, because we do this so often in a week, it's kind of like muscle memory. But for me, I know, and I can feel, you know how you feel a level up after, every game you play, after every level in Candy Crush. For me, that's after every single pitch, I feel like I've leveled up a little bit. So it makes me feel a little more invincible. So even, in fact, every single person that I may have spoken to today, and all 500 people in all these different conferences, I feel like that's been like 500 level ups. Because every time you introduce your brand, every time you tell someone what you do is a pitch, technically. So it's about how you do it, how well you do it, how well you manage to maintain everyone's attention, focus on you while you're saying that is very important.
So I'll bring your attention to. So do you have any maybe last question? I'll probably also look at our colleagues.
I think we've covered it all. Should we open it up to questions?
I think so.
Yeah, sure. Yes. There's a couple of people, I think.
My question is slightly on a different side actually. So there are two types of companies. One is the valuation based, and second one is the real profitable ones. There are two use cases. One is WeWork and second one is Byju's. Okay, after the recent crash. So in such cases, what should be the tactics for the crisis communication?
So you're not going to restrict me to either WeWork or Byju's, right? It's generally crisis, and you're talking about valuation or a listed company or any such. Right. Sure. So our basic approach always starts during the time when we are talking to the client in their pitch, right? Because crisis is, we cannot miss that. There's always a segment, towards the end of the pitch, we are telling them our capabilities, etc. But also that crisis is something that does not wait, the management does not wait for the crisis to happen. Your prep, again, needs to start from day one. So, in typical communications scenario, what we do is we are preparing for crisis in terms of messaging, tactics, etc. and imagining what crisis could hit a brand. And it could be at any time, right? So there's a committee that is formed, internal and external. An agency or a comms person has to be part of it, or a marketing person. And there has to be, like a rule that a corporate can actually look at to say that every quarter let's review the kind of questions, or if you arrive at something else, because you never know what could be a next new scenario to hit you. And then have that prep done as well. So you have like a file of things with you, right from messaging to execution, and you are ready so that in case if you are not there, somebody else then actually have a playbook ready to execute during a crisis.
I also would suggest never accept a pitch from an agency if they don't have a crisis communication page, or at least a 2-pager deck added there. You can't strategize when you're actually in a crisis. It becomes extremely difficult because a lot of the people that are already in the crisis are going to find it very difficult to kind of communicate with, with you, especially with an agency when they're already dealing with maybe 1,000 other things. And I'll give you a very simple example. I'm from India. Okay. There was a very recent controversy that happened with, fake and whatnot. And the crisis communication for that, I think, was very, very poorly dealt with because they did not see it coming. So when you're building a campaign, whether you're working on a retainer, whether you're just building a community for someone, you need to always have a crisis communication plan ready. And it's not as difficult as it seems. You just list your 5 W's down. You list your who, what, when, where. That's about it.
Thank you so much. One final question. Go ahead.
Sure. So thank you very much for your insights. I recently appointed a PR firm 4 months ago, 5 months ago, and I find it increasingly frustrating to get KPIs. So the answer I get when I ask what are we working towards is, well, we can't guarantee you exposure. And I get that, right? Because not everything that you say is going to be picked up in the press. I understand. But we need to be working towards something. So you briefly discussed it, but I didn't really get any insight or in-depth knowledge. What are KPIs in the PR world? And then I've got a second part is you did speak at length about strategy and having a plan in place and knowing what you're going to do for the year and the topics that you're going to discuss, which is great. But also things happen along the way. So do your plans allow for agile movements?
I'll take that. Sorry, I didn't get your name.
Yeah.
So KPIs in PR, like key indicators, as we'll probably look at, and they can be defined by a corporate with an agency or your internal team, right? Your processes are basically going to be the same, but your success, depends on how you want to execute, right? So your KPIs could be, and I'm just trying to give some examples here, having your brand name in the headline of a story. How many times do you want to see that in a year, right? Or if you had corporate messages, business messages, or some kind of CSR activities going, what would be your weightage to each story? So do you want to do 100% one CSR story in a year? That could be a KPI, depending on what is the kind of CSR activities you do. Or do you want to hard on a lot of products and solutions that you sell, right? So KPIs have to be determined internally that I want to see 30% corporate coverage, for example. I do not want to be part of any crisis story. Or I want to see 30% quality stories with 400 keywords in a quarter, things like that, and then you'll probably get to where you want to go.
Thank you so much. Amazing. Please put your hands together in a massive